All right, so we are recording the lesson now. Today's lesson is, whoops, we don't want the screen. Hang on, guys. There we go. Today's lesson is using proportions to solve percents. There are two ways to do percent problems. One is using proportions, the other is using equations. I'm not going to teach equations directly, but if some of you already are familiar with that, I can guide you in that. So we're going to mostly use proportions. Our objectives today are finding a percent, finding a part, finding a whole. This is not new or should not be new. You should have done this in elementary last year, maybe even the year before. So this is just making sure you're solid on how to find percents before we go into the 7th grade specific content. Okay, so objective 1, to find a percent using proportions. We're always going to use this proportion. We talked yesterday about how when we have a number like 53%, that means 53 out of 100. So we're always going to take whatever the percent is, write it over 100. And if we look at this percent over 100, our ratio has part of it over the whole thing. So if we had 53%, we have 53 over 100. That's 53 is the part, 100 is the whole. So we're going to make that equivalent to part over whole. That is a very important ratio, because, or proportion, because this is what we'll be using to solve the majority of our problems. Some keywords to look for. Part is usually represented by the word is. Whole is usually represented by the word of. In a word problem, you don't often see those, but when we're doing just numbers like we are today, we can usually find what we need by looking for the is and the of. So the first example, what percent of 2,000 is 204? So we can look at this. It's asking us what percent. The percent is the missing thing. I'm going to use P to represent percent. So P, we always have a 100 here, equals, now we just have to fit in part and whole. Well, we have the clue words here. We have the is and the of. It's saying what percent of 2,000. So the of is the whole, so we put the 2,000 on the bottom, is 204. We put that on the top. And then we just have to solve the proportion. So to solve the proportions, anybody remember how to do this? It hasn't been all that long. Irene?
I'm probably wrong on this. Would you cross multiply?
Yeah, you would cross multiply. Yeah, we did a lot of these problems with with the pibs and the yurts and all that sort of thing. So we cross multiply. So we get 2,000p equals 100 times 204 is just 204 with 2 zeros. And then to solve that, we would divide both sides by 2,000. So we get P equals 10.2%. Any questions about that? Yes.
Can you explain it cross multiply?
Yes. When we cross multiply, to solve a proportion, the cross products are always equal. So if we do 2,000 times P, that has to be equal to 204 times 100. So that always is a workable way to solve a proportion. There are other ways you can solve proportions. Also, you can think, how many times does 100 go into 2,000 and find kind of a scale factor and go backwards from that. But that's the easiest way, is to cross multiply. So we multiplied here to get 2,000p, multiplied here to get 20,400, and then we divide it by 2,000 to solve for p. Okay, next one is set up the same way. It's asking us what percent. That's what we need to know. So that's the mystery. P over 100 equals, again, we have our of and our is. So we have 34 over 234. So again, we can cross multiply. We get 234p equals 3,400. dividing both sides by 234 gives us P equals 14.5, and we can use the percent sign because we are looking for a percent. Any questions about this? Okay, go ahead and do the 2 you try. Feel free to compare with your partner. All right, number 1. Katie, what did you get as an answer?
I got 25%.
Good. Can you tell us how you set it up?
I put P over 100 and then I put equal sign in 23 over 92.
Good. Then P does work out to be 25%. Okay, number 2. Irene,
You want me to just give the answer? Or how?
tell me the answer first.
Okay. 20.37%.
Okay, 20.37. And how did you set it up?
I did P over 100 equals 11 over 54.
Okay, and we get P equals 20.37%. Okay, any questions about those? Okay. Objective 2 is finding a part given the whole and a percent. So if you know what the whole amount is and you're trying to find the percent of that amount, this tells you how to find a part. These are the kinds of percents that we will be doing most often. So we'll be moving into how to calculate taxes and tips and commissions and markups and markdowns. And all of those are this type of problem. And there's a shortcut for doing these kinds of problems. These are actually a whole lot easier to do using an equation. So we're going to set them up with the proportions. Later on, I'll be showing you the shortcut for these. And some of you may already know how to do it. But I do want you to set them up using a proportion for today's lesson. Okay, so this one, we're given the percent. We know what the percent is. The percent is 20%. We have the word of. We're finding 20% of 55. So 55 is the whole. So what we're finding is the part. So in this one, I would set it up as 20 over 100 equals the part, which I don't know, over the whole, which I do know. So again, I'm going to cross multiply to solve this. Get 100 times x equals 1,100. Dividing both sides by 100 gives me x equals 11. So 20% of 55 is 11. So if you ever go in a store and they say, whole store on sale, 20% off, this is how you could find how much that is. Of course, you can look at the little charts they have a lot of times, but a lot of times they don't have your specific number, and you can look it up this way. So you know that 20% of 55 is 11, so if something cost $55, we would be taking off $11. So how much would it cost to buy that now? 44. Good. Okay, number 2 is the same way. We're given the percent. We know the whole. So we set it up as 45 over 100 equals part over whole. Cross multiplying gives us 100x equals 1,350. It's pretty easy to divide by 100. We end up with 13.5. So 45% of 30 is 13.5. So if this were a dollar amount, we'd have $30. We'd be taking off $13.50. Okay, next 2 are for you to try. These are fairly easy because in each objective that we do, they're all set up the same way. So I'll just give you a minute to solve these. Okay, Carly, the first one.
I got 20.08.
Good. What did you, how did you set it up?
I did 36 over 100 equals x over 78.
Okay, and x equals 28.08. Okay, good. Any questions about that one? Okay, Reed, next one.
Should I do it?
Yeah, do the answer.
176.8.
Good. And how did you set it up?
I set up 68 over 100 equals x over 260.
Okay, last type. If there are no more questions on this type. Good? Okay, now we're going to be finding the whole if we are given the percent and the part. So number 1 says 16 is 25% of what number? Here's our of. We're doing of what? We don't know. So that's the whole, that's the mystery. So 16 is our part. 25 is our percent, obviously. Percent's easiest to find because it usually has a percent sign attached to it, or it may have the word percent. So percent over 100 would be 25 over 100 equals part over whole. And this time it's the whole that we don't know. So cross multiplying gives me 25x equals 1,600 and x equals 64. Any questions about that? Okay, number 2. This one is worded a little bit differently, but we still have, we're given the percent, 60% of what number, that's what we don't know, the of, is 80. So 60% of something results in 80. So we do percent over 100 equals part over whole. Again, we cross multiply. 60x equals 8,000 and x equals 133. Must be 0.3 repeating. I have 0.3 on my paper, but since we're rounding to the nearest hundredth, it would be 0.33. Okay, try the next 2. Number 1, Eli.
I got 194.44.
Okay, 0.44. What did you set it up as?
I put 18 over 100 equals 35 over x.
Okay.
And I did 18x equals 3,500.
Okay, good. And then got, what was it, 194.44, right? Okay, good. Number 2, Ailey.
X equals 25.58.
Okay, how did you set it up?
I did 43 over 100 equals 11 over x. And I cross multiplied and got
Okay.
1,100
Okay.
equals 43x. And then I divided both numbers by
Okay. And got x equals, what was it again? 25? 5, 8. Okay. Okay, any questions about these? Okay, this was the easy part because I showed you each kind and we practiced that kind. Where it gets a little trickier is in examples where you don't know what kind it's going to be. You have to decide whether you're finding part, the whole, or the percent. So let's read through the first example together. Suppose your entertainment budget is 30% of your weekly wages from a job. Wow, I wish my entertainment budget was that much. That would be a lot of fun. You plan to spend $10.50 on a movie night. How much will you need to earn at your job in order to stay within your budget? Okay, so it's asking us how much you have to earn at your job. Is that amount the part or the whole? The amount you earn at your job, is it the part or the whole? Jake?
The whole.
It would be the whole. So Your entertainment budget, first of all, this one's obvious. We know the percent, right? Because there's a percent sign there. So we can find the percent pretty easily. We have this amount that we're going to spend, and then we have how much we earn at the job. Well, obviously you're going to spend less than you make, or hopefully you are, because if you spend more than you make, then you're going into credit. But if you're spending a percentage of your income, the income is the whole. So we would set this up same way using the proportion. 30 over 100 equals part over the whole. The whole is what we need to figure out. Okay, so again, solving this, we would cross multiply. 30x equals 1,050, and we find that x equals 35. So we would end this by saying you will need to earn $35. And that makes sense. If you were to get a number that was smaller than 1050, you could go back and say, wait, that doesn't make sense. If I only earned, say, $7, how could I spend $10.50? So you've got to think about whether your answers are reasonable in the context of the problem. All right, here's a math one. Your math teacher assigns 25 problems for homework. You have done 60% of them. How many problems have you done? Well, one of the things is pretty easy to find. We have a percent sign here. So we know that 60% is our percent. So we can start to set this up. 60 over 100 equals part over whole. So now we have to decide, is the 25 problems the part or the whole? There's the 25 problems assigned. There's how many problems have you done? Which is the part, which is the whole? Zoe?
25 is the whole.
Good. 25 is the whole because you did some problems, but not all of the problems. So the amount that you did is the part. The whole is the 25 problems. So cross multiplying, we have 100. X equals 1,500. And x equals 15. So we can say you have done 15 problems. Okay, any questions before we move on to the exit ticket? Okay, the exit ticket will not have word problems. It's just going to have the basic problems. I'm running low on index cards. Here's what I want you to do. I would like the index or the exit tickets to be all roughly the same size because it makes it easier for me to collect them and grade them and not lose them. If you could take a regular sheet of notebook paper, fold it in half, and fold it in half again, that gives you enough space to do your exit ticket, and then when I return it, you could potentially reuse that sheet of paper if you're interested in being really nice and green and taking care of the environment and not wasting a lot of paper. So please do that.